Hello, you have a prepaid call from
Keith Jesperson,
Bruce Davis,
Patton Clark, Robert Barno.
What's your friend?
Welcome to another edition of The Lighter Side of Serial Killers. I'm your host, Keith Rovere. Today, we are going to have back on the program, this is 10th or 11th time, maybe 12th time, the Happy Face Killer, Keith Jesperson, is going to join us to talk about his new book. Now, we did one, two, sometimes three podcasts per victim for all of his victims to really get the truth out there, what really went down, what he was thinking, how he met the victim, how he killed the victim, usually strangled the victim, how to dispose of the body. I mean, really gory details. Usually it's the lighter side of serial killers. It wasn't always the lighter side. Now, we did some podcasts that were funny, and you'll see Keith does have a dark sense of humor, but a very good sense of humor. We talked about some of the funny stories of growing up in his childhood. But when we talked about the cases, they were pretty dark. First time he's ever done that, to really break it down on the podcast form, everything that happened. And some of it's not an easy listen. I mean, some of it is, pretty brutal to hear. But he decided to write a book. Now, all his cases are closed. The last victim was finally identified. You probably saw that he went viral along with me with Rex Heuermann, because as he was getting interviewed by one of the detectives out of Florida who came up to Oregon to see him about the victim that was finally identified, what her name was, they had a body cam on. And at the end of that interview, he said how he sent a letter to Rex Heuermann. I gave him Rex's address. We talked about this before, too, that he's written many serial killers in the past, and sometimes they even write back, like Arthur Shawcross, Wayne Adam Ford, even Charles Manson. And Rex wrote him back. And that just, the whole world blew up in the true crime universe, that a serial killer is talking to another serial killer. Well, then I kind of went viral because, he's done my podcast so many times. He sent me that letter, and I talked about that letter on. He gave me permission to talk about the letter and share it with everybody, and everybody wanted to interview me. Then they found out what I do. I talk to serial killers who call my show. Some of them never spoke publicly before. So Keith's been on numerous times, but he wanted to write a book. We'll talk. I won't give everything away, but we're going to talk about the reason why he wrote this book, what was in the book, and it's, as always, always going to have a good time talking to Keith. You never know what he's going to say. So without further ado, here is the Happy Face Killer, Keith Jesperson. All right. So now, what I hear is there is a new book coming out, and what is the title of the book going to be?
Well, it's a family of monsters. And my sister, I wrote my sister and told her that I had this book coming out, and it's called The Family of Monsters. She writes me back. She said, "Our family's not monsters, Keith." Oh. And I'm like, it's a metaphor. I had to write her back. It's a metaphor. I have a picture of me on the cover. It's a picture taken back in 1998 when I came back from Wyoming. I had a full beard. My hair wasn't gray, and I had a blue prison shirt on. And I put the pictures of, Ted Bundy and Rex Heuermann, who isn't a serial killer now. He isn't a convicted serial killer at the time. But Gary Ridgway and Jeffrey Dahmer, they're kind of around me. That's where the family of monsters come into play. We're all monsters in the public eye.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to bring this in. Now, it's also a spinoff of my daughter's show, A Monster in My Family.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's why I thought, well, why not use that? Because it's, she's made it clear that I'm the monster.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just figured I'd just run with it and put that out. Now, after my death scare back in December of 2023 with that cellulitis in my leg, and I still kind of have it, but it's not infectious right now. Yeah. I could have died last in December, and I was talking to a woman named Nicole. Mm-hmm. She lived in North Carolina, really nice girl, and she is a published author. And I ran the question by her as well. If I wrote a book and I sent it to you, can you type up the book in my words? And then I'll have a disclaimer and so forth on it. But all she's going to do is make sure that the spelling is correct. I don't want any of these little SICs all the way through the book that I spelt wrong.
Sure.
But I just wanted to have everything right, and it is properly formatted, the commas and the periods in the right place and so forth. So that's all she basically did. She typed it up for me,
Nice.
and she presented it to her publisher, who was on board from day one, and they run with it. I took 2 months to write it out, and sent her 900 plus pages, every other line on notebook paper. It came out to 304 pages typed.
Wow.
And it's a good book. The format of the book is I start with a disclaimer, and the disclaimer is, after 29 years of settling my cases, I finally do not have any more cases pending, which means that there's no more, I do not have any trials pending or anything like that, so now I can be completely honest with everybody. And so that's where this book comes from. I'm completely honest with everyone on how every case developed. Now, I tell how the system works and so forth, how the legal system required me to be a liar. And I had to basically come with the idea of blaming the victim in order to settle all my cases, and that's what I did. And this kind of lays out what exactly happened.
Oh, wow.
And I start off with the book. I write about how my first murder with Laverne Pavlak and John Sosnowski being arrested and convicted of this murder. I go down into great detail on how they were convicted and so forth. And then I start off with my history, my child when I was born and what I raised up and went along with, and some little stories about childhood and deal with my brothers and so forth. When I talk about my first thought about murder, the very first time I thought I was going to kill someone, and that was like when I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
I was my brother Brad and I and a friend of his went hunting in Bickleton, Washington for deer. And it was just a Friday night. We got down and we set up camp. We had our fire going and everything. And about 10 o'clock that night, a couple pickups showed up. 4 guys step out with guns blazing, and they're pointing at us. So this is our camping spot.
Wow.
And I wanted to dispute it, but my brother Brad and his friend were like, "Let's get the fuck out of here," kind of like that. So we get in my car and we drive up about half a mile from where they were, and we set up another camp, set up another fire going. I really contemplated going back and cutting every one of their throats. I really did. But I knew if I did that I'd get caught. And the reason why I'd get caught, my brother would tell on me.
Yeah, sure.
And the reason why my brother would tell him, because he would go home, and as it turned out, of course, when we got home, he went straight to Dad, and told him that these guys were all the guns on us, and told us we had to get out of this campus spot. And as it turns out, these guys worked for the same company my father was a design engineer for.
Oh, wow. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
so it kind of runs right into play here. But
Yeah.
That next day, while I was hunting up there, I always had my 30-06 with a 9-power scope, and I had my crosshairs right on every one of their skulls. I was going to blow them fuckers away.
Wow. Wow.
I was just, and it was a canyon. There's nobody around. But I knew that if I did that, my brother would go tell my dad that we had this confrontation, and I can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
Wow.
But anyway, so then I move on. I tell the other stories, of childhood, and then moving to Canada and back down, and different things, and then I start with the Bennett murder, and I go to the different murders along the way, and then when my convictions. And there's at the end of the book, I have a postscript chapters where I didn't want to clutter my book with little stories like my hunting, other hunting stories and driving stories and things. I wanted to keep it clean so everybody knew where the murders and stuff like happened.
Sure.
But these are like questions like a lot of people ask. Well, what's my favorite color? What's my best? Who's my favorite actor? Dennis Quaid, right?
Sure,
Or who's my favorite singer? Willie Nelson. I met Willie Nelson back in 1987, along with Burt Reynolds and Chris Christopherson. They stopped in Meade, Washington, while I was there at our Muffet and Sons pipe place I worked at.
Oh, wow.
They pulled in. He pulled in with a bus, and he stopped. They asked if they could park it there. Willie had a relative a couple houses down from us, and he had, in passing, asked, "Man, I need a bus driver. We want a job," and I was like, "I don't smoke pot. Sorry, I'm not going to drive your bus." But Chris Christopherson and Burt Reynolds came with them, and I kind of recognized who they were, and didn't even faze me. I was like, but he's 91 years old now. He's already kicking it.
Oh, yeah.
His birthday's like April 29th, and I always like his shows and stuff, but he's really kicking along. He's doing really good. I like that. I listened to his daughter on Sirius on Willie's Roadhouse on the FM series, and I keep track of all that. But
I think he's still smoking. The rapper Snoop Dogg, who's known to outsmoke everybody, was asked, could anybody ever outsmoke you, marijuana? He's like, yes, only one person could outsmoke me, Willie Nelson. He's like, Willie put me to bed. He's like, I had to tap out to Willie Nelson, of all people.
Yeah, well, that's now, I also bring in account that one time where when I was in Castle Metals in Chicago, and I bring up this story about how when I got loaded there, this guy was screwing with me. And I bring that into play. And I think what's really neat about this story is that it brings in this major big company, steel company up there out of Chicago and Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And this whole point will come into play. And everyone that works for that company are going to go like, I know this guy, right? I knew that incident because I was dealing with a bully, right? And this is basically the story is that we show up at 6 o'clock for a 7 o'clock appointment to pick up, and we're two different drivers, myself and another guy. At 10 o'clock, I get a knock on the door, and the other driver gets pulled into this big old warehouse. At about 2 o'clock in the morning, I get knocked on the door, and I get pulled in this warehouse. They drive me all the way through, and there's a 3 lanes going through this warehouse, and I'm on the very far end on the left-hand side, right before the next door. Well, I pull in front, and I back in, and there's a yellow painted area where you park, where you get loaded. And as soon as I get out of the truck, the guy that's going to load me says, "You're going to have to move over 6 more inches or I'm not going to load you." I said, "What?" That's half the width of my tire. He wants me to move over half the width of my tire. He's not going to load me. That's one bullshit.
Wow.
So he's going to go on break, and he said, "Oh, when you come back, I better be moved over." He's not going to load me. Well, I go back, and the truck behind me is the guy that came in at 10 o'clock. There was nothing on his trailer. Nothing. And I just told him, I said, "This guy's screwing with us." They had to move about 3 different places to get, and they had nothing on it. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to," and this guy's a bully. What he is, he's just a bully. Now, realistically, I wanted to punch him in the nose. Yeah. Right? I wanted to drop him on the ground, beat him senseless, but that'd make him a victim. So what I ended up doing was when he came back off break, he come up and he said, "You're going to move over?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, I'm not going to load you." And he said, "Well, why don't you just go open that door for me?" He said, "Why?" So I can leave. "If you're not going to load me, I'm going to go." And he says, "No, I'm not going to open the door." And he says, just move over. And I said, "No." I said, "Well, you have a phone?" And he says, "Why?" And I said, "So I can call the cops. You kidnapped me. I'm holding me against my will. I'm not going to, you can't keep me here."
That's kidnapping, technically.
"Open that door." So he reluctantly, he said, then he says, "Well, I'll just load you down." I said, "No, we're past all that. Just open the door. Let me out of here." So I go. The door's open. I go out to the shipping receiving office. I rip up the paperwork I had, and I threw them at him. I said, "You people need to change your attitude." And that's exactly what I told him.
Wow.
I got back in the truck, and I drove to Lake Station, Indiana, where our office was. Mm-hmm. The next morning, they wake me up, and I come into the office there, and there's a phone call with a conference call with the head of Castle Metals, the head of Systems Trucking out of Spokane, myself, and the guy there, and the other driver happened to show up, and we had this conversation. I told him what happened.
Yeah.
And then I said, we're doing you a service, and we're under a timeline to get your product to where you need to go. And if you're screwing with us for 24 hours, you can't expect us to be there on time.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine this guy, this bully, was called into the boss's office, and he was probably said, "You're in here because of 6 inches."
That's horrible.
But that was the start of the Angel Saz case.
Oh, okay.
The reason I bring that is because he didn't load me, I would have went to L.A., but instead I went to Spokane.
Ah, okay.
So it's a chain of commands on this book where any little thing thought moved me in different directions. Had this guy not been a prick and loaded me, I would have been in L.A. and I would not have met Angel Saz and she would not be dead. Well, I would not have killed her. Maybe someone else would have.
Yeah. Wow. That's still one of the favorite lines that people keep saying. When people who listen to our podcast, and we did, a podcast or two per victim, and especially the Angel Saz case, where you said a line in passing. It's a funny line, when you said it, but people, are in shock, but they laugh too. When you said, when you tied up the body under the truck and you drove her along, nothing was left of her, and the line you said was, "Well, if nothing else, it's a great weight loss program."
It is a weight loss program.
Everybody laughs their ass off when you hear it. Then they think about what they're laughing at. Like, wait a minute, what the hell did I just laugh at? But it was a funny line. I get more comments about that. He does have a good sense of humor, if nothing else. It's crazy.
Well, the reality of the thing was meant for a reason. I dragged her for a reason to get rid of identification.
Of course, yeah.
And there was a purpose to this. Now, of course, in the legal sense, they get me for destroying the body.
Oh, yeah.
But everyone, a lot of murderers could destroy the body in different ways. It was just happened to be there at that point and going like, well, gee, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
Well, hey, I remember that little dog being dragged in behind on that one show where the cop shows up and says, that poor little dog was running until it couldn't run no more.
Oh, yeah. He said you timed the traffic. You said when a certain amount of cars pass by, there's like a 3 miles or something like that. Wait till the next.
Well, yeah, this is late at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And in that area in Nebraska, the traffic clutters up. They get like 10 or 12 vehicles together and they're running around 70 miles an hour. Well, I can't do 70. I can only do like 64. So I get in behind these guys and they're getting ahead of me and the other ones are catching me. And it took 12 miles to catch me, and that's how long I determined I would drag her on the highway.
It worked.
That's what I did.
Yeah, it worked.
It worked, yes. But they still identified her because when she was 12 years old, she had a broken hip, and apparently she had a pin in her hip with a serial number.
Yeah, I remember you saying. That's why.
But I wouldn't know that.
Well, of course.
No, I wouldn't know that. So that's a problem. That's the problem with murder, is getting away with it, and there's so many little things that can come up.
Yeah.
That's one of them. But anyway, the other side, one of my favorite singer, I was kind of caught between two of them. I like Shania Twain, but I also like Taylor Swift. I don't know, I just love her songs. I just like the way she sings.
Very talented.
But now I'm a Swiftie, right?
There you go.
Well, I'm told I was a Swiftie. Okay, great, whatever.
No, that's going to make the headline. That's the headline,
of course,
right there.
I mentioned Dennis Quaid, right? Now he had a movie a long time ago called Tough Enough, and he's a boxer in a boxing arena, and he's boxing this guy named Gay Bob, right? And he's told one of his corner guys saying, "Watch out, Gay Bob in the clutches," right? But I kind of threw that in the book. And there's other stories. Now, I talk about the stories after I came to prison. That my dealing with Lynn Massengale and Dave down in Columbus, Mississippi, and different things that I think I've told you about.
Sure.
These little stories that we have to occupy our time when we're in prison.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do, is I occupy my time, and things happen, different things, and that's the way the book comes. I've had other people that have read the book already and said, because they've put them out to people to make a blurb on it. And the biggest thing is the biggest idea they come up with is that it's raw. It's a raw, because the way I write it out, I don't pull any punches. It's a raw expression of myself, and the book is is probably a really a must read for criminologists.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what they're talking about. So it's a good book. You know, it's coming out in you can buy it in December at most major bookstores.
Nice.
And you can go to Tennessee to the Crime Con, and she's gonna be there signing it.
Oh, good.
And that's on January 10th of 2025. And
good. Okay.
The book release is going to be the 21st of January 2025.
Nice. Not too far off. Pretty soon.
Not too far off. You know, the day after, the day Trump starts doing things.
There you go. Yep.
I actually mentioned Trump. And I also mentioned Yellowstone, the movie, the series that everybody talks about, because.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're a family of monsters too.
Yeah,
they're just a bunch of killers. They have a train station where they dispose of the bodies at.
Oh yeah, take them to the train station.
Take them to the train station, throw them down the canyon, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean this is just and the new series he got right now. I've been watching that. Everyone's watching that, and I can see.
Remaining.
I'll call you right back.
Okay, good.
All right, I'm back.
All right. So we're talking about Yellowstone.
So we're talking about Yellowstone. So I'm watching this series, and just this last Sunday, Sarah Atwood got shot, which I thought is a mistake in their writing of the storyline, because the people that killed the governor, Dutton, they're now cleaning up, you know, whoever did it, and it's kind of like scripted. I know it's scripted. This is what Hollywood is, but I think the only way that Yellowstone gets back to being Yellowstone is that they prove that, you know, the company that was going to build the airport was behind the murder of the governor, and then that way their deal for purchasing the land for the airport goes away, and now Yellowstone is reenacted to itself.
Yeah.
So that's how they get all the land back. That's the only way I could think it'll happen.
Yeah, you don't know. It's a good point.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a spin-off. I think this is the last season, but then... You
think it's the last season?
Yeah,
I think it's...
Because Costner said he's not doing it anymore. It was it for him.
Well, Costner's dead.
Yeah, and then that's why. That's why, since they told him it's the last season.
He's dead. They shot him. They killed him. They homicided him. But
well, that's why, because
as far as the rest of it going along, I mean, I know he didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. And,
but you know, it sent a wrong message. I think he was mad because it was a good series. Don't get me wrong, but it made him out to be a criminal.
Yeah.
You know, in the series, it made him out to be a monster, a serial killer like myself.
Yeah. It's a hell of a series.
Because he's taking care of business, even though he's taking care of business, but he openly allowed it. Murder is okay. That's as far as he's concerned. It's okay as long as the business keeps running.
Oh, definitely. No thought of branding
people
and everything else.
Where's his ethics? All his ethics is moralist. His moral stands as one defining moment is that his company stays whole and intact.
Yeah.
That's all that matters to him. I mean, everything, his land and everything is his. He doesn't want to give it up.
Oh yeah.
And that's why he kills everybody that comes in to try to take it.
Oh yeah. I believe that his daughter and her husband, the ranch hand, I think they're the ones getting the spinoff. I think it's going to go follow them from now on. That's going to be the new series. And
he's another brutal mother. He's a brutal mother.
Yeah.
Remember, they're in a bar and they listen to the guy playing his guitar, and he said, and the one guy turns around and says, "He's supposed to be dead."
Yeah, definitely. Imagine that. Oh yeah.
They know, this is the whole thing is America loves this kind of stuff, and so they'll like my book. They will like this book.
No,
the one thing about my book is it's going to raise the price of all the artwork I do.
There you go.
It's gonna blowing up because this is like the defining moment of who I am. Because I have no more trials. I'm not going to court anymore.
Yeah.
I have seven murder convictions. I'm going to do my time, and this is the defining moment of who Keith Jesperson is.
Yeah. Do you get into the cases
And
in the
this is
book
where
too?
this is what's going to happen. What's that?
Do you like when we did a podcast, we broke down each case. Do you also break down the cases one by one? Or is it more about kind of more about you as a
broke
person?
down all the cases. I tell it like it is.
Good.
So it's a little different than your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say.
Sure.
Because it's like in the Florida case. If I told them the truth, I've had to lie to a point. I had to blame the victim for 29 years until they finally got me in court. On April 4th, I did 6 minutes in front of a judge to pick up 25 years to life run concurrent with Oregon.
Yeah.
And finally, when that is done, that was it. Now, and then of course the detective Kelly Henderson, she wants me to be part of her life for some reason. Mm-hmm. Given she's doing talks on this case, and I wrote her. I said, maybe you probably should have waited till after the book comes out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
because it's what I told you really isn't what really happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I couldn't. If my lawyer told me, this is one of the things in my disclaimer. It says my lawyer told me that I cannot tell a story of premeditation in any of my cases.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
See, so if I ever told Florida that it was a premeditated murder, I'd be sitting on death row in Florida right now.
Oh wow, that's
right.
Yeah.
This is how it all end up, and basically it comes down to serial killers do what serial killers do.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Is that our ethics and our moral compass falls under a certain line. And they basically would charge me and convict me of what serial killers do, not exactly what they could prove I did.
Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I told a certain storyline for 29 plus years because my lawyer says don't give them a premeditated story.
Of course, yeah, makes sense. Definitely smart.
And that's how come. In dealing with the legal system, this is how you have to deal with it. And of course now. And one other thing I want to really iterate here on this book. I do not make a dime on this book.
Definitely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I will not make a dime. That all the money goes to Nicole and the publisher.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that are going to get the money off this, and we're not. None of the money comes to me in any way.
Sure.
So that it doesn't destroy the people don't want to buy the book because I'm going to get some money. I'm not.
Mm-hmm. That's
so
good, yeah.
I want to make sure perfectly clear that there's nothing. This is all done free in hand, gets handed to them, and this is what pisses off a lot of guys in here. They're going like, "You're not making any money on it?" No. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not right. Well, to an inmate, it's not right.
Yeah, of course.
To the victim's family, it isn't. Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah.
That I don't make anything.
Mm-hmm.
Now my daughter is probably mad because she didn't get the book to where she make money on it.
Yeah, you're right.
Other than that,
she'll find a way.
I'm not.
She'll find a way.
She wants more. She wants more information on how to enhance her life. Well, I guess she can read the book.
There you go. Yeah, that's funny. Did you ever think that, like when you had mentioned serial killers do what serial killers do, do you ever think about how your brain is maybe a little different than everybody else's? Like, there's a lot of us where somebody would piss us off that we want to strangle them, literally. Yeah, but we don't. That's not. But then there's other people who are like, I'm going to strangle them, and they do strangle them. Do you ever think there's maybe just like the hardwiring's a little different? Like we hear about the psychopathy, we hear about the brains, the frontal lobe cortex, and the amygdala, and some people don't have fear.
What they do is they took Gacy's brain, and they cut it open, slice it in little slices. I remember seeing that on TV on Discovery Channel one time. They took his brain and sliced it open so they could decide what the hell was wrong with it. They said, well, apparently the dead brain doesn't do anything, so now they need a live brain to go after it. So, well, they're not going to get mine. But, is there I would donate my body to science if it would mean something. Mm-hmm. But the problem is it's a moral. It's on the moral side. It's not whether your brain is a problem. It's how you were raised, and religiously wise, and so forth. There's a moral compass along that comes along. Now, once you kill someone, and have gotten away with it. The legal system has not caught you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a tendency to believe that you can get away with it again.
Ah, okay.
And that's just general. That's a general look on how people think.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the guy that goes and shoplifts. He picks up he steals a chocolate bar one day. 2 days later, until he hadn't get caught, he's going to steal 2 chocolate bars.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it goes. The next thing you know, he's stealing cars and robbing people and stuff like that because he hasn't got caught. And he'll keep doing that because that's the whole basis behind a serial criminal.
Mm-hmm.
Is that once they've got away with it, they believe they keep doing it. Look at all the people shoplifting in California. They're giving them a $950 limit where you can go in and just you don't even have to hide it.
It's amazing. Yeah,
You
yeah.
can walk in there and pick up with a calculator, calculate how much money you're stealing.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's below $950, you can walk out the damn room,
Yep.
go straight to your car and drop it off in your car and go back and get another helping.
Yeah, they're running wild. It's amazing.
And that's how the system works. And they're not going to stop those people unless they throw them in jail and make them accountable for their actions.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's wild.
That's all it's going to happen. That's generally, it's like in my book I talk about how when I got caught shoplifting, my dad made a big issue of it. But I find out later my dad's the biggest thief of all.
Oh, really?
He was more concerned about me getting caught than being actually stealing. Because later, when I was working for another company, he wanted me to bring tobacco home so he could use tobacco on the weekend. And I tried to explain to him, yeah, well, that's stealing from my boss. He said, well, as long as he doesn't find out about it, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is my dad's idea now. So he's a bigger thief than I am.
Did you see the movie Black Mass there about the Whitey Bulger, the Irish gang? Did you have that movie available to you?
No, I did not.
Just
no,
it
I've not
reminded
seen
me.
it.
It reminded me of one scene that his son, who was a little kid at the time, got in trouble because he punched another kid who was bullying him. So he punched him. He's like, I'm not mad at you that you got caught. And what did he say? He's like, I'm mad because, you let people see it. He's like, if nobody sees it, it didn't happen. Just like that, like in this cold voice. No one sees it. It didn't happen. It's about doing it.
Well, that falls under if a tree falls in the woods
Yeah.
to make any sound.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Because nobody's there to hear it. And
Yeah.
It didn't happen. So.
I mean, I think that's also one of the reasons we don't have too many serial killers today. I mean, we probably do, but they get caught right away. Like the Kohlbergs of the world, the Idaho guy, and you just can't get away with it anymore. There's nowhere, just cameras everywhere. There's cell phones everywhere. They can track you everywhere, and very difficult.
Well, Ted Bundy wouldn't have only killed one person.
Exactly.
If it happened today.
Yeah. I mean, the golden.
He would have got caught. He was walking. He walked with her all the way to her house.
It's amazing.
You think of all the cameras that would have saw him walking to the house.
Oh yeah, the golden.
No, he wouldn't have made it. He would have made one murder, and that would have been the end of that.
Yeah. They said the heyday or the golden era of serial killers is over. And I mean, I've seen everything get better.
Well, pretty much,
DNA.
unless you're a truck driver.
That's it. Yeah.
You could be a truck driver, but even then, look at all the trucks now they have, which have probably happened because of me to some degree. A lot of the trucks have cameras not just pointing out front, but also pointing back at the driver.
Oh, they do. Oh,
to make sure the guy's driving by himself and not having picked up any doorway or anything.
I didn't know that. I guess that makes sense if you're the company.
They're not just taking pictures of the guys up front, the traffic coming at you. So if they have an accident or something like that, they can prove it.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have the camera pointing back, showing that this guy's driving and there's what kind of habits he has.
That's true.
Or she has.
Yeah.
So this is probably a product of what of the serial killer guys like myself that are in a truck.
It's all your fault.
They want to stop that. They say, "Oh, I don't care how good you sound and everything, how good you sound, and you're such a great guy, but we don't trust you. We're going to put a camera, take a picture, make sure you don't have no girls in the truck with you or guys in there or something like that. We're not going to allow you to pick up hitchhikers."
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That makes sense. Now, what was the main motivation of why you wanted to write the book, and what is there like one main thing?
Because the main idea to this is that I had that scare in December with the cellulitis.
Sure.
And I thought, can wait for so long, but I wanted to make sure that my story is told. There's been so many books written about me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had people come to me, I want to write a book, and I said, it's too early. And he said, what do you mean it's too early? You know, that was 20 years ago. And yeah, but I'm not done yet. I'm not done in court.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm done in court, that's the time to write the book.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I can't, because whatever I write, before every case is settled, will become evidence in the next case.
Mm-hmm.
I can't allow that to happen. I've got to now. Once my case in Florida was done. I have no more cases, and I felt it was a need to tell the truth so that it's out there.
Oh,
I mean, I could have just told a lie forever and ever, and that'd be the end of that, and no one would be the wiser.
Sure.
And I'll probably take some heat from people in here, and they won't get it in here. But they'll get it in other prisons and so forth. I'll probably get some hate mail and other stuff. They're calling me all kinds of names, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But the story is out there for, I've been down for about almost 30 years now.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, I'm going to die, and this is going to be everyone's going to wonder why all this happened. And of course, they can go to that book and they can read it, and they'll know why.
Oh, definitely good.
There's not going to be. I did not leave any avenue or any opening spot for questions to be asked.
Oh, good.
It's going to cover everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want everyone to come all of a sudden have 100 questions they want to ask about things. I want to make sure that the whole story is covered and all my cases are covered, and to put a stop to those people thinking I have more cases out there.
Yeah. What do you think?
It's just ridiculous. They'll still think I have more cases out there.
Oh yeah, in general, yeah. People now just a natural.
I explained the 166 number when Detective Michael Coast comes in, flies in, and talks to me, and straight up lies to me. And then I tell him back. I explain all this stuff, why, and when, and all this stuff comes into play.
Yeah, you still see it online once in a while. Oh, Keith Jesperson has.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, that's that, or the self-start serial killer kit, and you always get some wild stories.
Oh yeah, well that's in there.
I did put that.
That's in the book.
Oh, that's great.
The self-start serial kill. I wrote that out for somewhat. You know what it is.
That's one of my favorite
And
stories.
I wrote the fact that Governor James Geringer got involved with on Larry King Live on discussing that very fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean there's a whole lot of little things. It's like when I was dealing with getting those people out of prison, the very first thing they asked me, Multnomah County asked me, would I take responsibility for 2 other murders instead of reopening that case?
Mm. It's amazing.
They had two unsolved murders they wanted to give me, and they said, we'll prove these are yours if you just leave that Bennett case alone, and so they can leave those 2 people in prison.
It's amazing.
And
Justice.
this is how they were. I mean, they knew they were innocent.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way that they wanted their record to stand, that they put people in prison and they don't let people out.
Yeah.
My biggest push on this was I wanted to get the facts out there. So, I'm sure Wikipedia is still going to have people running up and down, screaming and hollering about different things.
Oh yeah. Has there been any? What's been like the biggest misconception that you think you're going to straight out in this book? Obviously, we talked about it in our podcast and other podcasts that you've done, but for those who haven't really heard all the podcasts, is there things out there in the public, obviously aside from the hundreds of bodies that you've taken, hundreds of lives, obviously not true? Is there any other misconceptions that you really we're hoping the public can to learn about you that you think maybe had a
well,
different view?
I'm a nice guy. What can I say?
I do have a sense of humor.
I'm just misunderstood,
That's
right?
it. It's like you love women.
Yeah.
You love them to death.
I love them. I love them to death.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, okay.
That's everybody else's favorite line too. You say, I hear that all the time.
I love them to death.
Yeah.
Well, that's the issue. There's people that work around death all the time, and they come up with stories and jokes. And that may be more, but to some people, to other people, they find it humorous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just being human.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you run across, someone, I watch movies and I pick them apart, and when I watch someone that got a gun on somebody and they're talking them to death, right? I'm yelling at them, don't talk to them, just shoot them.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's
They don't want you. They're not good. You're going to tell them why you're killing them, and they're not going to care in a second or two.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't really. You don't really think about that. That someone who actually knows how to kill somebody and has multiple times. Does that happen a lot when you're watching a TV show and you see somebody die or killing somebody? You're like, no, that it's not right. That it doesn't happen like that.
That's not right. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
They go like they're strangling. You watch them strangle them in the movie. And if they actually had to show the timeline how long it takes to strangle somebody, I think there'd be less murders in America.
Oh, really?
Because people would say, well, shit, that takes 4 minutes to kill someone. That's not 15 seconds or less.
Yeah.
They show them strangling them. It only takes them like 10 seconds or something like that on TV.
Sure, yeah.
Because they only have so much time to have a movie. But all of a sudden they're dead in 10 seconds. It doesn't work that way. It's like 4 minutes. It's 3.5, 4 minutes when the body shuts down.
Oh, wow.
And if you hang on, that's why they say there's premeditation when you strangle someone, because it takes you that long to strangle them. You always have, you can strangle for 2 minutes and they can come back, right?
Oh.
There's different ways of strangling. If you cut off their air is one thing, but you cut off the blood to the brain is another. If the brain doesn't have blood going to the brain, then the brain becomes dead after so many minutes. So you would actually kill them by cutting off the circulation to the brain before you strangle, you take the airway away.
Wow.
There's different ways of bringing somebody down.
Oh, it makes sense.
And that's like, you'll also have like when someone is strangling someone, like there's a little bone in their neck that breaks.
Oh, really?
If you're pushing too much pressure on it. Well, if that bone doesn't break, then there's another reason why that person died is maybe because the cardiac arteries were pushed against and no blood went to the brain. So,
yeah, it's kind of like a learning.
Go
ahead.
You learn a lot when you watch like forensic. They have these shows on about this coroner that goes through and tells you how the bodies died. It does autopsies. And you watch those and you're like, oh, okay, all right, that makes sense.
Now, did you have any?
We're just getting more smart. We're getting smarter as time goes on. The criminal is. And whose fault is that? Well, because everyone has this infatuation for murder and mayhem and everything, and so we want to know what CSI and all these crime shows are all about.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
And we dive into these full head on, and we learn a lot. Of course, DNA doesn't happen overnight. It's usually a 2 or 3 week process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that come? You had to kind of wing it as you were going along. Like, do you have?
This is what my book talks about.
You do.
There's a couple chapters in there where I'm experimenting.
Nice.
This is my. It's a process.
Good.
A learning curve. I think that's what I kind of called it. Was the learning curve. On each murder is different in a certain way because I'm trying different things and finding out which works, what doesn't.
Oh, good. That's it. We don't have to give it all. We don't have to give it all away here. We're gonna have to buy the book to get all the details.
You have to buy the book. You're not going to get all of it.
Now, when again, as we kind of wrap up, when again is the book going to be released? And what was that date about the crime?
The book is going to be released it's going to be available on the 21st of January 2025.
I'm sure they'll be on Amazon.
And you can go to a book signing. You can go to a book signing in Tennessee at the Crimacon on January 10th, 2025. And you can probably purchase the book in December at all major bookstores, like, Barnes & Noble and different things like that.
Yeah, well,
Amazon.com probably gets it.
Yeah, probably Amazon for sure. And what I'll do.
And this book is hardcover as well as softcover and ebook.
Oh, you're doing them all three? All right. Oh, that's great.
I've got all three.
What I'll do.
Yeah, you're going to get all three if you want. So
what I'll do on this link here, especially when I post it on YouTube and all the other pages, I'll post a link directly when it's available. I'll post a link underneath here. So all you have to do is click on it and it'll take you right there. I'll post a link to the CrimeCon, where to get tickets and where to sign up for that if you're going to be in that area. We'll take care of that for you. Guide you right there. I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be really good. Obviously, I've heard most of the stories, but I'm sure you're going to go much in different detail and some things we haven't talked about before. So I think it's going to be a juicy book, and especially now the true crime genre that we live in. everybody wants it.
Oh,
Everybody's looking for
it's
something.
crazy. When you think about court TV.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure that these people out there are going to read the book and they're going to want, oh man, I got to talk to the guy again.
Oh yeah. That's going to be wild.
I don't think I'll do any interviews after. I'll just let the books do what it's supposed to do, tell it all.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'll leave it going. They're not, don't do Crime Watch Daily or anything like that. Just let them, if they want to talk about it, let them talk about it. But as far as the promotion, yeah, fine, it'd be great. Like I said, I don't make any money on it. The book comes out, and Nicole is going to run with it. She's hoping it makes a lot, but I expect it to sell a bunch, but you never know.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it'll be good. Definitely. That's what's got to get the word out.
There's such a big push on crime nowadays. You can't get away from it. Every time you turn a channel on, you got Law and Order, and you've got
every channel,
Court TV, and the Crime Network, and all this. Yeah, you got everything.
Yeah, there's apps.
And they're not talking about new cases so much as they do old cases.
Everything, exactly. This is not a shortage of things to talk about. All the cold cases out there. I mean, there's a show called Cold Cases. Now, especially with podcasts that are out there like mine, where people are calling into the show, they're hearing from them. That's what I think was eye-opening when we did our list of podcasts together. Whereas people have the impression of what a serial killer is, like this boogeyman that lives under the cave and the rocks, and they come on my show and they have a sense of humor and they're intelligent and they're like, well, I wasn't expecting that, and they're funny. It's completely different because the documentary say one thing.
We're like the boy or the girl next door, right? We're always those that the characters next door that we like to talk to all the time and not realize that the guy's deviant or the woman is off doing something else he shouldn't be doing.
Exactly right.
We have secret lives that we carry on. We don't want everyone else to know what's going on. We have skeletons in our closet, pardon the pun.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
I don't have any skeletons in any closet somewhere. They're all out in the open in the book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess it's easier for some people. Some people, like living a life of secrecy can't be easy. To compartmentalize it and still put that facade on, live day to day, whereas you have like everything out in the open. Hey, everything's out there.
Well, I've had to have it. One of the things I push in the book is that towards the end with the Florida case, I pushed the narrative of not having a defense but an offense. When I got Brierly Mitchell to pay for DNA testing for Florida and Riverside County and other cases, the unsolved. I was pushing to get it solved, and of course the police didn't want her to pay for it because they didn't understand it.
Yeah.
They didn't understand how come the killer wants this solved so quickly.
Sure, of course.
They were like, wonder what the hell's going on here? What's really going on here? And so what they did is they went a step forward and they paid for the DNA testing, and of course they identified my victim, in March of 2023, and then they came after me to settle the case.
Yeah.
And that only pushed it further and further ahead, and we got that settled. If I hadn't gotten Breyer to push that along, I think we would have been 2 or 3 more years down the road.
Could have been. Definitely could have been.
Yep.
And
so I came with the idea, ever since I've been in here, I've pushed my guilt down everyone's throat.
Yeah.
When I realized that I was going to do the rest of my life in prison, there's nothing I can do about it, I just wanted to get rid of it. I just wanted to make it go away as fast as possible, and that's what I did. Now, after all the cases are done, the book, I decided I better write this book before I die, and everything just goes away.
It's good because some people don't listen to podcasts or haven't heard of my podcast or other ones that you've done. Everybody knows where the book's at. It's going to be out there. It's going to be open.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be able to have it, or ebook, paperback, hard copy, like you were saying. So I think it's good. So it'll be out there for the whole.
I had a guy tell me, he said the Jack Olson's book was the Bible on Keith Jesperson. I said, no. I've read the book. It's not the Bible on me. It's just when he told me when he told me that he had to enlighten the book a little bit, make it a little greasier than what it was.
They
I
usually
said,
do.
Really? He said, well, I have to do that to make the book sell. I said, it's too dry with it. We gotta make it juicier. I'm like, and then I read the death game where you kill them and bring them back, kill them and bring them. What the hell is that all about?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's juicy enough.
So,
it's like with your daughter's book.
your
daughter...
I can understand where he came up with that. I know where he came up with it because when I tried to strangle my first one, for a couple of minutes, I released the pressure and found out that 2 minutes wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And we had to reapply.
Yeah, a whole different story.
So he just made it into a game, kind of like, and I was like, well, I didn't say that.
No, like I said, it's like with your daughter's book. There's plenty of truth and juiciness in your life and your story to have a great book. You don't have to make up things to make it juicier.
I also discussed my daughter's book, too.
Mm-hmm.
I bring up the fact, okay, my daughter says, in 1984, I went into the basement and took her box of kittens out of the basement.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in 1984, I lived in a double-wide mobile home.
I know. Yeah.
I had no basement.
It goes from sometimes it's puppies, sometimes it's kittens. You never know what story is going to come out.
Yeah, you just never know. And every time it changes where he put them. I remember the one couple said, well, we're going to go up there and dig them up, give them a proper burial. Then she changed the story. Oh, no, Dad took them in a gunny sack and threw them in the river.
Yeah. Crazy.
Just so that couldn't get them.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean, this is how it plays out.
Silly is. Well, we got about 30 seconds
so
left.
She's going to...
Oh, yep.
All right.
I'm going to say it was great catching up with you, and I can't wait for the book to come out. And so once it comes out,
I can't wait either. I think it'll be a good push.
Mm-hmm.
Everything will be fine. And I'll be waiting on Pendle's knees, waiting for you to give me an idea of what you think of it.
Oh, definitely. Well, there you have it. It's never a dull moment talking to Keith Jesperson, that's for sure. I'm sure not just this podcast, but the book coming out is going to open many people's eyes to those cases in the past. There's again so many documentaries out there, and at the end we're talking about another book that was written about Keith. There's been a few out there. People just make stuff up. Like I said, to make it juicy. It's just silliness. I think we covered most of that in our podcast that we've done, our multiple podcasts that we did for each victim to really explain the whys behind the scenes, so to speak, to get rid of all the myths out there. No, he didn't kill 160 some bodies. The self-start serial killer kit. It's all just to get attention out there. And no, he didn't write happy faces on the victims' bodies. Only like 1 or 2 letters he actually wrote that on. So all the myths we kind of debunked out there, and even some lies that his daughter had said in her book about him. We can go back and watch all my podcasts on Spotify or anywhere podcasts are hosted to see all of them. This YouTube one's a little bit new. Some of these aren't on here yet. But Spotify, go back, you'll see at least 10 or 12 appearances that Keith has done on my podcast, which is pretty wild. I'll put the links below when I have them as far as the Crime Con, when the author, or co-author, I guess you can say, of his book is going to be signing copies, where that's going to be specifically. He mentioned the time and the date. I'll put them down below. When the book is available, I'll come back to this. I'll edit it, and I'll put the time. Put the links, for Amazon or Barnes & Noble, whatever the books are going to be sold at. Probably Amazon is probably the most popular one, especially when doing an ebook. You can check that out when it comes out. I'll probably do another podcast when it does, or have Keith back on to talk about it. The release party, so to speak, in a couple months. That is good. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. It's always an adventure talking to Keith Jesperson. It's pretty wild. Actually, the face of my podcast is one of his pieces back there, the Melting Mickey. And I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, see ya.